If he was ever going to leave quietly, US President Donald Trump is challenging the results of the presidential election. Republican candidate Trump lost to Democratic candidate Joe Biden in several key states. Vote counting isn't yet complete, but with around 99% done, the outcome is unlikely to change. Trump has repeatedly stated there's been fraud during the election. The Republican Party is backing his legal challenges to try to overturn some results. So let's discuss this with international relations expert Mark Rosenberg, who joins us from Los Angeles. A very good morning to you. I mean, whatever the outcome, well, no, Joe Biden has won, but I mean, he still has to fight for the Senate. It's not going to be as easy as he thinks to overturn some of the damage done. How much time do you think he has?
Well, you mean in terms of, he certainly has until, January 20th, 2021 to take office. Thereafter, it's very hard to say how much time he has to repair any, the international or domestic damage done by the Trump administration. I think that's going to be a very hard road. At the very least, he has 4 years, but we'll see.
What sort of lessons can the US learn from South Africa? Because I was reading with interest your article highlighting the similarities between apartheid South Africa and what we've seen under the Trump administration.
I think the main lesson for the United States is just that the end of minority rule, in our case of white Christian minority rule, in the case of South Africa, white minority rule, is destabilizing. And that it requires institutional change in order to accommodate the social pressures that bubble up when a country is changing demographically, and there's significant pressure for those demographics to be reflected in the political system. And I think that's really the main commonality between the United States now and late apartheid South Africa. And even though the countries are obviously very different economically and politically and socially, demographically, this commonality is a big part of the reason why we're seeing such instability and social upheaval in the United States right now.
Might they be able to reverse the rot quicker than we did? I mean, they don't necessarily have to change their constitution. They've got strong institutions in place if they want to play the right game.
I think so. I think that is a big advantage of the United States, or its institutional depth and strength. I think on the other hand, the advantage that South Africa had during this transition was leadership that was communicating a new vision of the nation. Right? You had Nelson Mandela and by that point the African National Congress advocating a kind of rainbow nation, a new national identity to replace the previous Afrikaner nationalist identity or white nationalist identity in South Africa. We don't really have that quite yet in the United States. It's obviously Joe Biden is sending out a very conciliatory message about healing the nation and about coming together and working together. But Americans are still very much divided into, at least two kind of different ideas of what it means to be American. And there isn't a Mandela-like figure in our midst to try to bring those two sides together.
And they have the problem of systemic racism, I can't breathe, what we've seen been happening for years to particularly black men when it comes to police. I mean, that is going to take possibly a generation, a sharper focus of education here.
It really is. I think a big part of this election is the kind of official recognition by the incoming administration that systemic racism is a problem, that it needs to be dealt with through policy. And much like other large issues that the United States is dealing with, COVID-19, climate change, et cetera, it's a big step for the administration to acknowledge the problem in the first place before we set out to solve it. However, I don't think anyone should have any illusions that this will be a rapid process. In fact, America has been moving, incrementally toward more progress over time. But
and Mark,
certainly
so can I just jump in here? I want to quickly get this before we run out of time. I mean, what sort of lessons from South Africa, what can the international community do? And focusing on something that obviously is just the most horrific thing that we saw under Donald Trump was the separation of children from their parents in these immigration detention centres. I mean, that is something that needs to be reversed immediately.
And it will. I think that's something that, that kind of policy, I think, will be immediately reversed. And I think there'll probably be a slew of executive orders in the early days of the Biden administration to override some of the more extreme policy positions of the Trump administration. So I think that will be reversed very quickly.
Rosenberg, good to talk to you. Thank you.